On the surface, HBO Max's new series, Task, might just look like another standard crime thriller that you've seen a million times before. But here's the twist. It's not the plot that hooked me, it's the psychology of the characters, the structure and pacing of the show to focus on the little moments, and even the eerie precision in how it displays what real and authentic feelings of regret look like. In a year packed with high-budget dramas and franchise IP television, Task is one of the most original, layered, and quietly brilliant shows of 2025, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Not just what makes it great, but what makes it matter for the future of television as well. The idea of why I call this show a standard crime thriller is not meant to be a bad thing, as much as that is an objective reality with what the show is. It's more of a problem that the marketing for the show didn't communicate well enough some of the other themes that the show centers on. Nowadays, trailers and other forms of marketing for TV shows and movies either show too much or don't show enough, and that results in people not remembering the dates of when something comes out, and even knowing of the TV series or movie's existence to begin with. So when I say that Task is more than just the standard generic crime thriller that the trailers painted to be, having now seen the show, I can tell you that that one main trailer that we were given for it does not do the actual show justice. The thing that ultimately makes this stand out from other standard crime thrillers is that because of the limited series type of nature that it finds itself in, it becomes more of a character study than just utilizing the crime nature of it all as the vehicle, while also having a very deeply grounded and atmospheric setting when you keep that all in mind. A lot of the different characters in the show are morally ambiguous and complex, which helps to keep the narrative tight, focused, and pushes more themes to it than just the idea of watching the cops and justice system chase after the bad guys committing the crimes. If anyone watching this video is a fan of crime television and films, this show will please you regardless because of some of the procedural elements that infuses inside of the story along with some very well done suspense elements. But if you are also looking for something more than that, Task will intrigue you just as much and make it worth your watch. I mentioned how the show brings in a more grounded story, but I also would say it's just as much of a relatable story when you comb through the finer and more tiny details. As my man Sherlock Holmes once said,
"In fact, the little details are by far the most important."
The show centers around two main characters, one played by Mark Ruffalo and the other played by Tom Pelphrey. Tom Brandis, an FBI agent played by Ruffalo, is pulled from leave to lead a task force in investigating a series of violent robberies in suburban Philadelphia. These robberies are being perpetrated by a family man named Robbie, played by Pelphrey. He resorts to robbing drug houses to support his family after his brother's death at the hands of the very biker gang that he ends up stealing from during a robbery gone wrong that sets Mark Ruffalo's character in motion to track him down and figure out the entire situation. So like I said already, that seems like a standard crime thriller plot on the surface, but there is so much more to it than that. Some of the essence to the story being relatable deals with the family system that a character like Robbie Prendergast finds himself in. He is a father grieving the loss of his brother while trying to provide for his kids and his niece, who is in some cases also acting as the second parent to those kids. Tom Brandis is also a family man dealing with his own personal guilt and trauma due to his background as a former priest, but also because of a personal loss that struck his family and had almost split them apart. The show absolutely puts family front and center. And no, not in the more fake way that the Fast and Furious franchise has been doing lately the last however many movies. By making that a strong focus, it also sets up a harsh look on what being a working class family is like within this particular situation that our characters find themselves in. Robbie and his friend Cliff try to work off being garbage men in order to infiltrate these houses that they rob. They all live in suburban houses and also live in a county in Philadelphia that is not the most well managed when it comes to money. That's a very tiny and important detail right there that even finds its way into the justice system part of the whole plot with how the FBI works in this part of the United States, where they have to limit funding, and so Tom Brandis is left to set up his task force in an abandoned building that he is told to clean up himself in order to prepare his force and house them for the duration of the case. It's a show that emphasizes what a lived-in reality looks like with these kinds of things, and makes it feel more authentic when factoring in those tiny details. Most of the crime shows you've seen before, they would probably get away with doing this and make those tiny details not as present in the show's storytelling and be worth a few minutes of screen time. But I think it's also cool that the showrunner Brad Ingelsby decided decided to make that a part of his narrative choices. One of his other major focuses around the narrative and the background of these characters in their living situations is based in how the show actually revolves around a portion of real life during a time of the last 5 to 6 years through COVID, as well as including in what a lot of people would consider a political talking point nowadays, which is the fentanyl drug trade. Inside of the show, the main robbery that sets off our crew and gets them in trouble involved a robbery of 12 kilos of fentanyl that were being run by the biker gang, the Dark Hearts, the very gang that had Robbie's brother killed. This element of the narrative is not necessarily indicative of a real-life story that happened, but does paint a picture as to how you might see this happen around the trading of such a toxic drug that has killed many people in the US. Fentanyl certainly has been a major talking point to a lot of current social problems in the country, which can make this story more visceral, more relatable, and worth the intrigue to see where it goes. This type of thing would enhance the relatability because I would imagine a lot of viewers who are watching this show would be living around suburban neighborhoods, or if they had a drug crisis that they have been through or have seen happen in and around where they live. So not only is there a socio-economic backdrop to the conflict of the show, but there is also that very morally complex and character-driven narrative that binds it all together when focusing on the side of the good guys, where Tom Brandis is aligned, and the bad side, where Robbie is, where you can definitely say that he's not a bad guy necessarily, but he works inside of those circles and is committing crimes that he probably shouldn't be doing that can endanger the rest of his family that's left alive. It makes all these different characters that we follow so much more approachable when consuming their lives through 7-hour-long episodes. You can understand what Robbie's motivations are and disagree with how he's going about it, and you can also see that someone like Tom Brandis is not necessarily heroic, but someone that is even more than just that as a family man that can deal with his own grief and internal conflict and still carry himself through all these different things going on in his life that he needs to focus on and make sure do not break him and the rest of his family apart. It makes the characters extremely relatable, as I've said many times already, like you are watching two different halves of the same person between Robbie and Tom. Many different crime thrillers will focus on the bad guy and good guy stories and not play into it as much, but Task as a limited series takes that and does so much more with it, even when it has less time to make it compelling, which is just as impressive as it gets. It becomes more about the why and the who as opposed to just the what of it all. Now, if you'll indulge me, I haven't talked about spoilers yet that much, and the reason for that is because the show only just ended, and given that I don't think a lot of people have heard about this show, I'd rather give it time for people to see it before they watch this video. But I do want to talk about the finale, so I will talk about one scene that involves spoilers, and that is the courtroom scene with Mark Ruffalo's big monologue. So this is one of the final sequences in the entire show, and it involves Tom Brandis and his family being at a court hearing regarding the sentencing of his adopted son, who is charged with the killing of Tom's wife. From the early on stages of following this character from episode 1 to the finale, his arc is more than just about solving the crimes with his task force regarding those robberies that he was investigating. He was also dealing with a fractured family system given his adopted son Ethan and what he had done. This particular plot narrative also relates to an aspect of real life because of the COVID part of it all. Ethan was unable to get treatment for his mental health due to the COVID crisis, as Tom points out in his speech, and because of what happened from this, Tom's character was put in this position where he was essentially trying to avoid engaging with this type of trauma that he was dealing with. It was only until this scene where we first truly see him deal with it and see his son for the first time in forever, because he had also refused to see him while he was in prison. By the end of his speech, his last words as he looks his son in the eyes are the most powerful words I have heard in any television show I've seen all year. In particular, the very last couple, when he says that when that day comes for him to come home, he wants him to come straight home, and he'll be ready for his arrival. That scene broke me, and I was getting very emotional at it. That one moment right there, from the beginning of the monologue to the end, I think you realize what this show is actually about. It's able to crystallize and form a concrete end to the show's themes of forgiveness, shame for one's actions, and an ultimate redemption for what you can do to fix it. Tom, by that logic, is essentially the show's real main character. It's not Robbie, as much as Robbie probably gets more screen time than Tom does. That doesn't exactly make him the ultimate ultimate main character. That courtroom monologue scene is, I imagine, not what a lot of people would have expected to have seen in a finale. Through Tom's time in the task force on his newest case in the field, it really opened up his eyes to solve his other task, which was his family life. A man who was unable to balance both his work life and his family life, but managed to do it in the finale. The very final scene we get was the cherry on top, as we see that he is able to send the kid Sam involved in the robbery off to another adoption family, mirroring how he picked up his own kids that he adopted. It's a perfect way to end a character arc, along with it being perfectly and masterfully executed by one of the best working actors right now, with Mark Ruffalo. I know it's easy for a lot of people to say that his character in this show embodies the memeage of the scene in the first Avengers in the Battle of New York City.
I'm always angry.
But his performance was more than just that. I think you could see right through him enough to understand the kind of performance he was putting on. I would not be shocked at all if Mark Ruffalo got nominated for this, and he probably should be. Tom Pelphrey should also be nominated. He was almost just as good at times. A defining aspect of the show that was able to keep me watching throughout. If these two hadn't been on their A game, I probably would have struggled to keep watching, but that was not the case. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is another big element to why I titled the video the way I did. This is a limited series, meaning it's not going to get another season, and it's only confined to the 7 episodes that we got. The showrunner and creator of Task, Brad Ingelsby, has already done a limited series before this called Mayor of Easttown, starring the great Kate Winslet. I have not seen this show, but I have heard very strong things about it, that it's one of the best limited series of the last 10 to 15 years. On the other hand, thankfully, I have seen some of his other work of what he's written for movies. Run All Night is another great crime thriller that he made back in 2015 with Liam Neeson as the star. It's another grounded crime story that fits into some of the elements that a show like Task represents. An underrated movie, if you ask me, that definitely wasn't talked about a lot back 10 years ago, and I recommend you all give it a watch. His other much more bigger writing accomplishment in my mind is a movie he did with director Scott Cooper called Out of the Furnace, starring Christian Bale, Casey Affleck, Woody Harrelson, and Zoe Saldana. I really like this movie, and it's probably the most relatable out of everything else that he's done in his career to a show like Task. So if you want to go and watch something that gives you that Task feeling, go watch Out of the Furnace. It's an insanely grounded story with many similar themes to it. The point that I make with all of this is that what Brad is able to do so well with his style of filmmaking is that he is able to craft limited series type shows that leave a mark on you, and at this point, he has basically gone 2 for 2 with what he's done. I make this as a petition and an outward cry to all television studios out there like HBO and more. Please, for the love of God, consider wanting to make more limited series type events. These kinds of shows can be some of the best ever made if you have great teams of creatives behind them. Some of the great ones that I have come to watch in my life include something as good as Chernobyl, which came out very recently, Watchmen, based on the adaptation of one of the biggest and most popular graphic novels of all time, and then you have the 3 World War II limited series event shows like Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and Masters of the Air. All of these shows are fantastic in their own way. 2 of them are probably 2 of the best shows ever made, whether it's a limited series or not. It's stuff like this that can really elevate stories on the television format with how they are told. They tell much more focused stories that don't find a reason to be distracted by unnecessary plot points and character subplots that have no meaning to the overall narrative, and by the end, pack a punch to the gut that allows you to remember it for years on end. This is one of the biggest reasons why Task is one of the best of the year so far. It's not masterful level television, don't misconstrue my words, but it is very good television, and I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't feel what I've talked about in this video for why I made it. But what do you all think of the show if you've seen it? Also, with that last part in mind, what limited series show have you been wanting to see for years now that tells a story that you've been interested in to see be adapted, whether it's based on material that exists or is a totally new and original idea? Leave your comments down below with your answers. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you are new here, and please turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build an awesome film community on here, and your support would be appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.